I think we will go ahead and get started. And on behalf of our friends with the Missouri Environmental Education Association and ourselves, I'm Laura Downey with the Kansas Association for Conservation and Environmental Education. We're really pleased to have you join us this afternoon for making beeswax wraps. And before we get started, we want to be sure to acknowledge our generous sponsor of this event, the Kansas Beekeepers Association. And here's a little bit of information about what they do and opportunity to get connected with them if that's something that's of interest to you. And this is a part of our virtual monthly events series. And we have them going on through the end of the year, and we may continue to do them into the next year, I think. But check out either casey.org or mia.org so you can see all of the upcoming events that we have, and also to see all the fabulous folks who helped sponsor this for us. And so it is my pleasure and my honor to introduce you to our speaker this evening. And Pam Martin is with the Kansas Wetland Education Center and an amazing environmental educator. I actually saw her do this program last year sometime, Pam, is that right? I think it was.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be a great thing for you all to be able to see and experience. So I will turn it over to you, Pam.
Okay, well, thank you, Laura. It's great to be here. I'm in the lab here at the Kansas Wetlands Education Center, and I'm looking out the window here at a whole huge field of sunflowers, which is probably full of bees, which is yay! Because even though we're focused on honeybees today, honeybees they're domesticated. I was just talking to Jeff Syme. He stopped from Wildlife and Parks, and they keep bees. So honeybees are kind of an agricultural animal, you know, not that much different from cattle or chickens. They're managed. That we raise them, we have diseases that we try and fix with them. Whereas our native bees are out there just doing everything on their own. But honeybees are cool. Honeybees are really cool. So are our native bees. So today we're going to make beeswax wraps. And the reason I got interested in this is because I'm getting really tired of everything plastic. You guys know that song by Madonna, Material Girl, where I'm a material girl. I won't sing for you, but anyway, I think that should be, I'm a plastic girl, because if we keep this up, we already have plastic in our bodies. They've done studies on this. We're going to become like mannequins. Imagine that in your head. So we're going to get rid of straws, right? We're going to get rid of plastic toothbrushes, right? We're going to get rid of these Ziploc bags. We're going to get rid of these nasty plastic bags, and we're going to get rid of plastic wrap, okay? We're not that there isn't a use for plastic, you know, plastic syringes, and in the medical field, it's essential, but we don't need to drown it. So I saw these beeswax wraps. I thought, oh, how cool. And then I saw the price. They're not cheap. And I thought, I wonder if you could make those. So I got on Google, you know, the Oracle. And sure enough, you can make them. And there's 50 zillion recipes for them out there. So I played around with it until I found the recipe that I like. So I'm going to share that with you today. And I don't know if any of you are going to make them with me. If you are, that's great. You know, I'll go slow enough, I hope, that you can keep up. And just Laura's going to kind of monitor this. So if you have a question or need me to slow down, just say, hey, to Laura. Okay. So these are some beeswax wraps that we made in a workshop. There we go, with stenciling. So you can use, this is just with muslin. I mean, how much cheaper can you get than that? Just, you know, you cut out muslin. Oh, and remember how in the instructions or materials I said pinking shears? I don't know if you guys are seamstresses or not, but you don't have to be. But pinking shears help that from unraveling because cotton tends to ravel, right? So that's a help there. So you cut that out, but you don't have to be limited to stenciling, right? You can just come up with some really cool, these are just what they call fat squares from quilts. And these were 97 cents at Walmart. I can get 3 out of 1 fat square. And look at this, isn't this just too cute? Raccoons and foxes, and hedgehogs. Okay. And then my favorite, owls. Woo-hoo. Who doesn't love owls? Okay, so if you do stencil, it's pretty easy. You know, you can go to hobby store and buy stencils, and you know, they usually don't have just bees, but if you look on the butterflies, usually there's a bee down in the corner. So I've used this, and then you can get all kinds of nice little borders. You can get the stencils that have the alphabet on them, so that you can put your own really cool saying on there. My AmeriCorps gal, she came up with, let's see, do I have that right side up? No. Be green. Lots of fun. Okay, so you just cut those out. And a trick to using stencils is get some painter's tape and take the stencil down where you want to take the edges down, where you want to put your stencil. Now, that way it doesn't move, you get a real nice crisp stencil. The other thing is you're going to need fabric markers. And these are great. These are Crayola, and they're a fine tip, so you can do all kinds of really cool curlicues and stuff with them. And really, the beeswax is going to be warm, so it kind of heat sets the markers. So you don't have to even worry about it. Now, we did these like right away, within 10 minutes after having stenciled them. Probably it's better to let them set a day, but you can do this. And it's just great. Like I said, the beeswax seals it up because beeswax is amazing stuff. And we'll get to that while we're working. We'll talk about that. Let's see. So got your ingredients. Oh, let's go over what you're going to need to make them. These are called beeswax pastels. They're just little beads of beeswax. You can buy it in the candle section, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. They usually have this. Now, you know, we've got supply problems right now, but normally they carry this in the candle section. You can also order it online. The other part, if you just use beeswax, which you can, it's going to be really stiff. And you want something that if you just warm it up with your hands, it will go over whatever you're trying to put the beeswax wrap over instead of plastic wrap. The other thing you need is pine resin. And again, now this I could not find in the hobby stores. I had to get this from online. And if you just plug in, let's see, pine resin nuggets. I mean, you can get a block of pine resin and you can, you know, shave it and cut it up, but that's a lot of work and I'm into easy. So it's not that much more to buy it already chopped up. And then there's something called jojoba oil. I think I pronounced that right. I had to look that up. And they use it in medicines and skin lotions and that kind of thing. And that kind of helps as an emulsifier, keeps that nice and pliable. So those are the only 3 ingredients you need. None of them are that expensive. I bought, and they last they go a long way, I guess I should say. It only takes, what is it? 1.25 ounces, which I measured out, because not everyone has a scale. And it's a little less than 1/3 of a cup. You'd be better off to weigh it, but you could do that, a little less than 1/3 of a cup. The pine resin is 0.35 ounces in the recipe, and that's 1 tablespoon and a teaspoon, or thereabouts. And then a tablespoon of the jojoba oil. So that's pretty easy. This you don't have to weigh out. Now, the other things you need, well, you don't need a hot plate like I have here. You could just use your stone, an old saucepan to make a double boiler, because once this gets in your container, like I'm just reusing the same one over and over, and you can see that's pretty grungy in there. But the great thing is with beeswax, as soon as you heat it up, it just goes liquid again. So you don't have to, again, nothing expensive, just what you've got around the house. And then you need something to stir it with, and you can use a popsicle stick, but this is just a dowel rod, and it works a lot better than the popsicle sticks, because I put two together and then they came apart the first time. So this is a lot better to use. Okay, so is that all the, oh, and a brush. And I just went and got a regular paintbrush. Don't get them too cheap though. I got the really cheap ones first. And it's kind of like, oh gosh, I got hair in my beeswax. So I would spring it for another buck and get a little better quality paintbrush. So I think this was $2. Cheap. Something, I'll forget this if I don't say it now. These are great for you to make, but they're also a great thing to do with kids. If you have a classroom or you want to do a program with kids and you're talking about, you know, reducing plastic, or you're talking about pollinators and bees, you can use it for either one. And you can do it in a 2-session period where first you would stencil, because kids, I found that kids love to stencil, just like adults. So, and they get really creative. They get a lot more creative than I do. So you can do it in 2 sessions. And then, of course, with the kids, well, teachers would know how to do that. You just got to watch with the heat. I wanted to make sure I said that. Okay, now, all you have to do is measure out your beeswax first, and it's sticky. Beeswax is so cool. Humans have been using it since Neolithic times. This is really cool. They used MRI, or not MRI, HPLC. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's a type of chromatography. And they took the pot shards of pottery that they found that were from Neolithic people, which would be 4,500 to 10,000 years ago. And then they scraped off the inside of the pot and they put it through the HPLC. And guess what? Some of those pots were holding beeswax. So humans have been using beeswax for at least 4,500 years. Pretty darn cool. Okay, then we put our resin in and give that a good stir. Then we add the jojoba oil. Okay. And this stuff is really, really oily. Okay, and we just pour that out. Add it in there. Okay. There. And stir that up. And give it a pretty good stir just to make sure that I'm going to come around and show you what that looks like. Okay. So you want to mix that really well, because if you don't, you end up with a lump, which I was hurrying and I kind of got a lump in my stuff that we're going to use. But nice thing about beeswax, it melts. Okay, so then you just put that in your warm water and let that melt. While that's melting, I've got some ready, but I want to show you some other things. Parchment paper. Wonderful stuff, and nothing sticks to it. So you want one sheet of parchment paper to put your beeswax wrap out on to brush with, brush the beeswax on. And then over here, let me get that out of the way. Oh, let's see, let's put this down here. Get rid of that. I always need more space. Okay. Oh yeah, another bad plastic thing. Super, super bad. Water bottle. Okay, so take some tape, like some packaging tape, and tape down a sheet of parchment paper to the table. Now, I tried using this, but painter's tape, it won't keep it down. You've got to use strapping tape. And then tape another piece of parchment paper over that. And what we're going to do after we brush on our beeswax is we're going to put our beeswax wrap in here, and then we're going to iron it. So that's one way. What the iron does is it incorporates the beeswax into all of the little cotton fibers. And people have other ways of doing it. They also do it in the oven. But, you know, we didn't have an oven here at the center, you know, to use with the kids. So I just use this iron method, and it's great. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit more about beeswax. People, like I said, have been using it forever. And I don't know how many of you have ever used beeswax candles, but they were prized by people back in medieval times, you know, in the abbeys and stuff, because they burn evenly and they burn longer. You know, if you get cheap candles, they burn and they're gone. Beeswax candles last forever. And I mean, they burn for a longer time and they last forever. And then another use for beeswax, I found these little things, and they're in a hexagon because that's what they're, you know, they make their comb, the hexagon little cells. And you just put this in your hand and warm it up, and it's a hand lotion. Also, it's in lip balm, it's in moisturizers. Some cheese manufacturers, have you seen that like red coating around cheese and you break it off? That's beeswax that they put dye in. But you know, my hands are always cold, so it's hard for me to get that warm enough to work. But they say, cold hands, warm heart, right? Okay, so I have some comb here. Now, bees, in a typical hive, there's what, 35 to 50,000 worker bees. And man, do they work. And these are going to come around the ends I shows to you. This is drone comb, okay? And you notice perfect little hexagon shaped cells. This is worker bee comb. In other words, these would be this is brooder comb for worker bee. And you tell the difference, I mean, not in the color, there's a reason for the different color, I'll tell you in a second. But the difference in size, drones are bigger, right? The male bees than the worker bees, which are the infertile females. And then, this is pretty cool. Carl Grover, the former, the retired manager of Cheyenne Bottoms, found this out on the bottoms in an old cottonwood tree. And it was evidently a swarm that had left a larger hive, and they had started a hive. And you can really see, I'm going to bring this up closer, how they construct it. And the difference in color has to do somewhat with, you know, this comb has been used a lot. And so when the little bees come in, they've got dirt. Oh, this is really old. I have to be careful with it. Falls apart. So it gets dirty. The comb gets dirty. This is more what it looks like when it's newer. And when the wax comes out of the bee's body, and the way they make their wax is from little wax glands, 8 of them, in the abdomen. And when the wax comes out as a liquid, and then as it hits the air, it hardens and it makes a flake. And only bees that are 12 to 18 days old, some sources I had said 20 days old, are the ones that make the wax. Isn't that amazing? So they have to build up enough energy they could produce that wax. And then I did read one source that said that those bees eat what's called royal jelly, which is the special honey that the bees make that have extra enzymes in it. And that makes their bodies produce the wax. So it flakes off, or it makes flakes on their bodies. They take with their back legs and they bring the wax off their bodies up through their thorax or their abdomens, up through their thorax to their mandibles. And then that's what they use, and they work it, and they put enzymes from their mouth into it. They also add some honey and some pollen, and that's what they make the beeswax out of. There's 300 different chemical compounds in beeswax. Whoa. So then what they start to do is they work it into the comb, and they actually the bees make a bridge, like they link their legs and they go across like that branch, and then they all start using the wax and they make a framework. And the interesting thing is that until 1999, it couldn't be proved mathematically that a hexagon was the best shape to store the honey in. And they finally proved it mathematically. Bees knew it all along, but they still don't know if it's kind of just a physics thing, accident, because we see hexagons in nature everywhere because it's strong. It has the largest surface area of any shape. And there's a third thing that I'm forgetting. But anyway, where was it? So it took them that long to figure out. So when the bees make this, they actually form it to their bodies, like that worker bee cell. They're forming that around their body. If they're making a drone cell, they need it bigger. And then they start to move their wings around. And as they construct it, that's when the hexagon shape forms. So scientists aren't sure if it's just because nature likes that shape and it's being formed because of that, or if the bees have something more to do with it, which is mind-boggling. Okay, so enough of that. Let's go ahead and we're gonna get, and if you guys are following along, go ahead and get your wrap that you cut out and put it on the parchment paper. And then I'm going to give this a stir and get my brush. And the nice thing about parchment paper is too, it won't burn, so I can just put that there. Now, when you brush this on, you don't want to saturate it because remember the iron is gonna help move the beeswax throughout your material. Now, if you put too much on, well, I'll show you what to do because I always get a little too much. So you just dip in there and you start brushing it on. And it's really a pretty fast process. And even if it starts to, solidify a little bit on you, it's no big deal because you're going to use the iron to melt that again. And from this recipe, you can get a couple of small wraps and a big one, or like 3 mediums, or 2 mediums and a small, but it goes a pretty long ways. Okay, so the other thing about beeswax is it costs the bees a tremendous amount of energy to make beeswax. The honey that they're eating is just like us eating food, and it produces energy for us. Well, it's estimated that the bees have to consume 8 ounces of honey to make 1 ounce of beeswax. And in its lifetime, a honeybee only makes 1/12 of a teaspoon of beeswax. And then, after those 18 or 20 days, the bee doesn't produce wax anymore. And I didn't look that up, but I think, so we got one side done now. We're gonna go to the next one. But I have a feeling that that's probably about when they become a field bee. So in other words, they're a house bee for half their lives, about 3 weeks. Yeah, that'd be about right. And then they become a field bee and they go out and hunt for nectar. Okay. So they have all these estimates of like how many flowers it would take, and it takes a lot. And that's why habitat loss is such a big deal for bees, whether it's honeybees or native bees. And there is one native bee, bumblebees, one family, bumblebees make wax, but they don't make big hives. They just make like, it's like little pots. It looks just like little pots. I don't know if you guys have seen that. And then she lays her eggs in these little pots, or they look like little honey pots, really. And then she caps it off. So you're not going to get much from them. Okay, we're almost done here. I'm getting some solid on there. Like I said, it doesn't really matter if you get some solid, because you're going to iron it. Okay, that's that.
Hey, Pam.
Yes.
So how long did you heat up your beeswax, and like on what temperature were you at?
You just want it, you know, it's in the double boiler. So you've got it in warm water so you don't overheat it. So I keep it at a simmer. I keep that water at a simmer, and it takes about 10 to 15 minutes for that to melt.
Perfect. And I'm also assuming that kids could just use markers to draw on the fabric and not stencil them at all. Is that true?
Oh yeah, it certainly
Okay.
is. And some of them want to do that. You know, they want to do their own thing. A lot of them do. So this is what I don't know if you guys can kind of see how that wax is brushed on there. Okay. Now we're going to iron it. And I can already tell, as usual, I put a little too much on. But that's okay, because it's so easy to work with. Okay, here we go. So we put it under, can you guys see okay? Let me get rid of some stuff.
Yes, we can see.
Can they see? Can you see, Laura?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to iron this. And, you know, you don't want to ruin your iron. So you always want to pay attention and make sure that you don't put your iron on the wax, because boy, that would be hard to get off there. But you can see it, it's getting dark. Unfortunately, I don't have a webcam. I can't really bring it over here. But you can see the wax melting as you iron and going into the fabric. And that's what you want. You want to make sure you get those edges really well so that it's all incorporated in there. And see, I even had a lump where it started to harden, and it's all melted now. Okay, almost got it. Okay, there we go. Now, let's see. Yeah, there's quite a bit on there. I'm going to show you. It should feel there. So that's all incorporated in there. Now, you want it to be stiff, but you don't want to be able to feel like extra wax. Kind of like oilcloth. Do you guys know what oilcloth is? It should kind of feel like that. Okay, maybe not quite as stiff, but pretty close. And I can tell, like I've got extra right here. I've got some extra here. So the easy thing to do is to put this back on here, and then get one of your other pieces that you're going to do, like the owl one, because it's the same size. You just put it over the one that has a little too much. And then you iron it. So it will transfer the excess from the one that has a little too much to the fresh one.
Hey, Pam, a question. Is it okay to get your iron on the parchment paper?
Is it okay to do what?
Get your iron on the parchment paper.
Yeah, because you're ironing, what you're doing, okay, so you've got a layer of parchment paper on your table. Then you put your beeswax wrap, and then you put another layer of parchment paper. So you don't want this to touch, you don't want the iron to touch the wax. So you always have it on the parchment paper.
And not that I know from experience, but you also don't want to do this on like your wood table that's finished.
Oh. No.
Again, not that I know. Yes. And what's the setting you have your iron on?
I have it on really hot. I think this is as hot as it'll go. But you know, this is kind of a cheapy iron. It's one we got here. On a good iron, I'd probably put it on cotton. It doesn't have those type of settings here, but I would put it on. And don't have water, don't steam.
Don't steam.
But yeah, do not have it on steam. You don't want any water. Just dry. You're dry ironing on cotton setting.
I won't mention any names, but one of our staff was like, where in the heck am I supposed to get iron? And I'm like, not iron the element, iron as in an iron. Yes. And she's like,
Yes.
oh.
Yes, and that doesn't surprise me. My daughter, I don't think she's ever ironed anything since she left home. And I used to make her iron things. And I remember, okay, I'm dating myself a lot here. But when I was a kid, Mom, you know, we had those old cotton sheets, not like the nice ones we have now. And I had to iron sheets and pillowcases, and it would take forever. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to see if this got the excess off. And you may have to do it on both sides, which I probably will have to here. Yeah, that came off. Yeah, I bet this one's going to be pretty much done. And I'm going to turn it over. Oh, you know what? You could also sandwich it, which is what I'm going to do. There's a whole bunch of extra wax right there. So I'm going to put that there. I'm turning it over now. And then I'm going to turn over the owl one and put parchment paper back on, making sure that I have it, you know, right side up, wax side down. And we're going to iron again. It's like I said, you want this to be able to go over your bowl or around your sandwich, around your apple. And I'm going to show you that in a second after we get done with this. And the care, you might want to write this down. To care for these, it's really simple. You just wash them in cool water with a mild soap, like maybe maybe Ivory dishwashing soap, or a little bit of Dawn. And then you just let them dry, fold them up, and put them in a drawer out of the sun. Because that's another thing about the bees that's really fascinating is wax. To make the cone, the wax has to be at 91 to 97 degrees. Well, you know, how often is the weather like that? So in order to make it that warm, the bees gather around the worker bees that are making the wax, and they warm it up with their bodies. These are so cool. Okay, now let's check and see if we got this. And we want to check this. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I didn't time that. But I bet it's been 10 minutes maybe since I put this in here, and it's almost done. And you don't want to get it too hot, because then you end up with a little scorch mark. And I'm going to actually turn that down a little bit.
And by done, do you mean like you can see that everything's melted?
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. And I didn't, you know, and you would stir it more than I just did because I was doing this. So, you know, just like you're making pudding, this is how you want to do it. Okay, so this one's going to need a little bit more, but it's almost done. So I got 2 for the price of 1, so to speak. Okay, and actually, I forgot. I got 3. This one's even better. Wow, cool. In fact, that one's, and this is now perfect. So it's kind of fun. You just have to maneuver it around. And once you get the feel for it, I might, after we're done here, I'll probably take a little bit more of this off. It's just a little stiff here. So you see how, you know, it's a little bit pliable, but I can hold it like that. This is perfect. You want it to just hold just a little. And I have some commercial ones here somewhere. Oh, here we go. So here's one I use a lot. So you see how it just folds just a little bit? That's how you want it. And then if you want to get fancy, I found these in Colorado. And it's got monarchs on it. So of course I had to get it. But you can put a button on it. And then that way, when you're wrapping up a sandwich, you can tie it off, which gives you even more, oh, I want to say more of a latch that way. So I'm going to put that there. And I'm going to show you how to use these, which I probably left one over there. Oh, here we go. These are some other ones that we made. Go Green, that was for Earth Day. This is with Petite, kind of a tie-dye look. Here's another commercial one, apples on it. And speaking of apples, there we go. Okay, so fruit's super easy. These are great for fruit. I use them for fruit all the time. And you just put the fruit down. Now this one I just took out of the refrigerator, so it's gonna probably won't adhere quite as well. But you just wrap it around. It's like a little apple dumpling. Now, great for sandwiches. Where's my big one? Oh, here it is. This is a nice big wrap. Now this one's a little bit stiffer, which is fine. That works too. So put your sandwich in the middle here. And you fold it up, kind of like you're folding up a present, you know, like you're going to wrap a present. Just roll that up like that. Okay, like that. And then do the other end. Okay, I didn't do that very even. Let me redo that. There we go. Okay, there. Then you can tuck this in, this end. Now, if you have that button on there, that'd be even better. Excuse me, because then the button, they have like a oiled cord on it, and you just wrap it around and tie it. But there you go. And it keeps your sandwiches really fresh, super fresh. Okay, that's that. And that. Okay. Now, and the ones, like I said, it's just like this. It unties. Isn't this clever? And see how it all folds up? And these last a long time. And if they start to lose their stickiness, all you've got to do is just refresh them. Just, you know, if you're going to make some more, just add a little bit more to the ones that you've used. So all they did is they turned a corner over and then put a B button on there. Clever, huh? Okay, let's see. Have I forgotten anything?
I'm assuming that they can also just cover bowls in your fridge and things like that as well.
Yes, and I forgot to get a bowl. And
That's okay.
Over here, but yeah, and then, you know, if it doesn't adhere completely, you just put a rubber band around it. You know, I've done that before. Just like I said, my hands are usually cold. Okay, any
Are there-
questions?
Yeah, are there any questions? You can unmute yourself.
Oops, I'm gonna get over here. Well,
I'm gonna say your head's cut off if you're.
yeah, I'll go
There you
like that.
go.
There,
There we
there we
go.
go. There. That's the drawback to, what do I call it? Zoom and not having a web camera. So does it, who's gonna try it? Did anybody do it with me?
I chickened out because I figured I need to stick close to it, but
Right.
Deidre has a question again. And I think the measurements, Morgan, help me out. Were they, do we have that in a,
Oh,
graphic?
I'll share. Let me share that.
oh, okay.
Let's see. Well, here's the directions. Can you guys see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I don't know, they could just take a picture of that, right?
This is true, but she was looking for the specific measurements you gave us of like just under a third a cup of the pastels, I think.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
I think. Is
Let me
that right,
show the
Deidre?
next. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
There's the other directions if you want to take a picture of that, and then I'll show you the other one. The materials list. Okay.
And I think too, Pam, if you'll send us that, we can send it out to everybody who was on the call too.
Right. So it was 0.35 ounces of the pine resin, which is a tablespoon and a teaspoon. And then 1.25 ounces of the beeswax. And that, it's about a third of a cup. It wasn't an exact measurement. And then 1 tablespoon of the jojoba oil. So we can send this to you too. Oh, and I did have a video, almost forgot that. Oops, share screen. Of the bees making the hive, which is so cool. Let's go ahead and start that. Oops, I'm trying to get rid of this so that I can, it's not full screen, is it?
Nope.
Okay, I got to get rid of this. I can't get to, okay, here we go. Let me get this started again. Here we go. Okay, so there you see the worker bees chewing the wax. There they're adding it to the comb. It's got 2 layers of the hexagon cells. See how they're shaping it there?
So they start off round.
Yes, they do. They do. They don't become a hexagon until they move their wings. They start moving their wings inside the cell. Each one of these is called a cell. And from what I understand, they start moving their wings, and then that wax starts to harden, and that's when it makes the hexagon shape. Uh-oh. Sorry. Just a second. The video is still on mine, and I need to stop it. There we go. Okay. But now I got to get out of it. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm a little rusty. There. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, bees are incredible. Totally incredible. Any other questions for Pam? You're like a wealth of bee knowledge.
Well, they're amazing creatures. And the more I'm learning about native bees are amazing. They just have different survival strategies, you know. And well, you know, there's a whole bunch of different species of honeybees. And the African killer bees, of course, they make honeycomb and stuff. It's just they're more aggressive, which is a problem for us. But in Africa, they harvest honey from those really aggressive bees. And in South America, that was in National Geographic, there was an article about the beekeepers. I can't remember which country it is, but this is a case of unintended consequences. So the native people had lived for very comfortably by going into the jungle, harvesting the honey, and then selling it. Well, the government wanted farming in that area. And so they brought in people from North America, the Mennonites, to do the farming. Well, the Mennonites put in crops like we do. The honeybees are a tropical forest species. And so the native tribes have lost their income, and now they're warring over this. So, you know, honey is still a precious commodity in a lot of different cultures, along with the beeswax too. Yeah.
Not to mention the pollination services that bees provide. Yes.
Right. We didn't even touch on that.
No kidding. Unfortunately, we don't have another hour, Pam. Just kidding.
Oh, well, darn.
Are there any more? Thank you so much. This was really helpful. And I love that you've messed around with the recipe and showed us what to do if we got too much on, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to do the same thing.
Yeah.
But are there any other questions or anything else you would like to know from Pam?
Thank you, Pam. This was like, I was just like, what? No, what? What? No, like, that's just amazing. Like every 2 seconds you were giving me some more information. I'm like, this is awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I know. I just want to come have like a whole like day with you.
We're gonna have to do Pam part 2.
Yes.
For sure.
Right.
Well,
let's see. We could do eco printing. I'm really into eco printing and natural dyes. Oh, it's so cool, guys.
Who wants to do eco printing and natural dyes for a virtual monthly event? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little harder. But
oh, like Libby's like ready to go right now. She's like, go ahead, start. Yes. Awesome. All right. So that's a yes, Pam. That would be awesome. So thanks again to the Kansas Beekeepers Association for sponsoring this event tonight. And thank you so much, Pam, for giving your time and talent and knowledge to us about the beeswax wraps. I'm so excited to do this now.
And you guys have to send me pictures of yours, okay?
Definitely.
Everybody send me pictures.